book of Galatians, chapter 6. Galatians chapter 6. Look at verse 1, if you would, please. I'm reading from the New King James version of the Holy Scripture. Brethren, if a man is overtaken in a trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourselves, lest you also be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks himself to be something when he is nothing, then he deceives himself. Let each one examine his own work, and then will he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. For each one shall bear his own load. May the Lord rich his blessing be to his read word may be sanctified in our hearts. You may be seated this morning in the presence of the Lord. I want to talk to you this morning and continue our mini-series, which we'll be wrapping up either this week or next, depending on how far we get this morning, from the subject of why do we need the church? Why do we need the church? And for a sub-theme or subtopic, I want to talk about so that we can learn to be loyal to one another. Why do we need the church? So that we can learn to be loyal to one another. For the past several weeks, the American sports scene has had this great preoccupation with the NBA basketball free agency. And a lot of it centered around a couple of players, among them, of course, being LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and Amari Stoudemire. And they probably were the prize picks of this NBA free agency round. And as I was thinking about it, and I've watched it a little bit closer than what I normally watch professional sports, because I've almost given up on big-time sports. I loved sports as a kid growing up, but I've almost given up on professional sports, and I rank it right below big-time wrestling. Because I believe that big-time wrestling has more integrity than professional sports. Because big-time wrestling, they have a disclaimer. They said, this is prearranged entertainment for the pleasure of the viewing audience. This is not a sporting event. And big-time sports today has become nothing more than a commercial enterprise that has questionable integrity by a whole cast of characters. But I watched this very closely because I hoped against hope that something different was going to happen. I'm going to share with you what my insights here are. And I may be totally wrong, but it's just my own personal insight. I was hoping that LeBron James would stay with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was hoping he would stay. For a number of reasons. Most of them had nothing to do at all with athletics or with basketball. I was hoping he would stay because I was hoping that at some point we would actually produce a world-class and caliber athlete that would be different. And that would be different from the others who've had this great platform, this great statue, and they fumbled it away. Michael Jordan had it, but he fumbled it away. He fumbled it away with his immorality that cost him his marriage. He fumbled it away with his unbridled lifestyle where he's gambled away millions of dollars and he's lost real integrity and confidence that people would have in him. Kobe Bryant had it, and he was the toast of the town. He was the heir to your heirness, Michael Jordan, but he fumbled it away. Oh, he'll be a great basketball player, one of the greatest ever, but he would only be thought of as a basketball player, and that's all. Tiger Woods had it, and he was going to be the transcendent one that would transcend race and culture and class with his incredibly God-gifted golf skills. Now, he's fumbled away with his unbridled sexual appetites. So I was hopeful. So you got to understand, as I've showed you before, I'm an amateur historian. If you understand the history of African American people, you understand the role that sports has played. Sports was the first arena where African Americans were actually allowed to compete as equals. The rules of the game determine the terms of engagement. And because this nation has had this infatuation with sports, that they would allow the rules of the game to determine who was most qualified and who should participate. And so there were great people like Paul Robeson, many of you don't know, an intellectual, an artist, and a sports figure, hero who used his great stature to move and to try to advance social justice. There was Jackie Robinson, who was more than just a baseball player, but who was a statesman. And when he got to the pinnacle of his success as a Major League Baseball player, the first African American, he used it as a platform to advance social rights and civil rights. Jesse Owens did the same thing. Even Muhammad Ali, though he had his problems, his inability to stay with one wife, but he was a principled individual, and it was Muhammad Ali's stance based on his religious beliefs. Even though you might not agree with them, he was willing to compromise everything and give up everything to say, I'm a principled person, and was ready to go to prison and had been sentenced to prison and was broke and had nothing before the Supreme Court stepped in and overturned his conviction. And so these individuals have been the champions. They've lifted people's spirits and they lifted the hopes. And there's the brown bomber, Joe Louis, a man of humble background and humble means, but who used his stature as the heavyweight champ to mobilize this nation. And many people forget that. If you understand history, you know that. When Hitler, Nazi Germany was running blitzkrieg in Europe, in Germany, they had a champion, Max Schmeling, and he had defeated Joe Louis in a bout, a non-title bout. And then the great rematch was being held, and this was Hitler going to put his superior race and his superior champion in the ring. And everybody in the United States of America was hoping against hope that Joe Louis wouldn't lose. And Joe knocked out Max Schmeling in the first round, and it rallied the nation, and people signed up for the military. And Joe Louis went into the military and became the chief spokesman for this country, traveling around the world, doing exhibition fights for free and recruiting young men into the military. That's something people don't even talk about. In return, he almost went to prison for his inability to pay his taxes because of poor management, and ended up broke. And it actually took basically people all over the country pleading with the Internal Revenue Service to not send this man to jail after all he did for this country, because others had squandered away his resources. See, this is a history you got to understand. That's why it's more than about football, and it's more than about basketball, and that's why I cringe when I see that Charles Barkley has gambled away millions. They can do what they want to do with their money. With the need so great in the neighborhoods and in the communities where they were born and raised, and the states where they were born and raised, you would think they could find something more useful to do with their money than to throw it away at a crap table or in a poker game. So these were high stakes. These were high stakes, and so I watched it all, and I actually cried. And I'm going to tell you why. LeBron James did not do anything illegal. He didn't do anything immoral. He did nothing that he should feel shame about. He simply made a choice. He made a decision. But he made a decision that I believe that in a couple of years he will regret it for the rest of his life. He will regret the decision that he made. Because I don't know if he really understands the full ramification of his decision. There are athletic ramifications. First of all, he's given up the opportunity to ever be considered the greatest basketball player ever. Because to be the greatest ever, you got to stick it out in a place. Make them build a team around you and show them that you are the man. That's what Jordan did. That's what Kobe has done. That's why Kobe ran Shaq out of L.A. Oh, yeah. He ran him out because he said, I can't be considered in the same sentence with Michael Jordan as long as I have someone else that's a Hall of Famer. I got to show everybody I can do it. You build a team around me, and I'll be a champion. And he's proven that he could do that. He's proven that there's only one other person that you can mention the same sentence with him in terms of basketball, and that's Michael Jordan. But it's more than basketball, young men and young women. It's more than football. It's more than baseball and track. It's about a legacy. And here's what the king just did. Not only did he give the right to be considered the greatest basketball player, he gave him the right to even be the leading scorer in history because he could have probably eclipsed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had he stayed on the team.